What's up, everybody? It's Dan, Binder Boneyard, coming at you from the office. Here at the shop, it is a gray but 70-degree day, which is weird. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. I appreciate everyone across the platforms getting good feedback and just appreciate the numbers that I'm seeing. So, yeah, I just grateful, for everything. Yeah. So, if you've been following along on the socials at all, you probably saw that I dragged home a pretty special bird, the 1960 B-140 four-wheel drive. Unique in several aspects. The 140 designation was not common, because it's like a 1.5 ton. A lot of back in the day, you went from a 130, which would be a 1 ton, to a 160, because the 160, would be dual wheel and higher GVW and that kind of thing. Like the 140 is kind of a in between. I don't know what you call it. Like, it's not a good pickup or light duty hauler, but it's not great at heavy hauling either. Like, it's kind of this in between. I don't know what. It's just it was made. It's very purpose built. If you were buying a 140, you had plans for it, especially if it was a 4-wheel drive 140. And this 4-wheel drive 140 is a single wheel. So it's running 20-inch wheels. The tire size is 8.25 by 20. So kind of not super common. Gear ratio is 6:16, and it's the front end has no locking hubs. It is full-time 4-wheel drive. So it's the 4-wheel drive is really just in and out with the transfer case lever, and then you've got the high and low gear ratios. So, excuse me. So it's typical. I have a philosophy or a mental condition where I look at trucks as, how do I say it? Like, things are meant to be. I look at things, and if, a project comes in and I just can't get it done, or I can't see myself doing it or whatever, then it goes somewhere else. But then that project might come back into my radar a few years later with either more budget or a different game plan or whatever, and then we're able to do it. So this truck actually showed up in my radar about 2 years ago. My dad sent me pictures of it, and I'm still not 100% clear on how he got pictures of it, but it was somebody he knew down there. And I mean, it was in a carport, and it was piled up with garbage and house stuff, Rubbermaid totes full of who knows what. And there was, chunks of carpet and rug on the hood, and you could just barely make out what it was. And somehow they were trying to make out a deal, and it came back that the old lady wanted $10,000 for this truck, and she had no idea if it ran. Of course, they all run. You talk to these people, and they go, "Oh yeah, it was just running a few years ago." Well, you never know. And so of course at that price range, it was just not feasible, not realistic. I mean, I've paid extra for trucks I really wanted, but this was no 10 grand truck. So I kind of forgot about it, just let it go. And then I get a message on the business website through the chat feature of all things. This guy sent some pictures of the same truck, but now it's on a trailer. And he says, "Hey, I've got a truck I think you'd want." And so we started messaging, and he was here local. So of all the things, it made it from Salem, which is 2.5 hours away in the valley, over the mountain to over here into my town. And it was only 8 miles from the shop, maybe. And so granted, the only pictures I'd ever seen of it previous were the couple that my dad had, one from the front and an angle shot from the back. So I went out to look at this thing just out of curiosity, because I didn't know if they still wanted 10 grand for it. I don't know what the deal was. So, I went out there with no trailer, no money, just, I really just wanted to see the thing, and, got to look at it. And yeah, I mean, the driver door was stuck shut. The hood hinges are messed up. The air cleaner was off of the carb. Electric fuel pump, wire nutted wires, just a whole bunch of the usual stuff for an old farm truck that's been around a while. And of course the people had the story, it was a Forest Service truck, and, but clearly, the cab was white underneath this layer of like aquamarine paint. But yeah, the cab was white everywhere. But then the bed is Forest Service green underneath this aquamarine that they put over the top of it. So, looking at it, it appears that there was some sort of flatbed or something on it before the 9-foot step-side bed went on, which in the MT books, the International just refers to as the standard bed. So, I go out there and I look at this thing, and it's rough. I mean, cab corners are rusty. The floor's rusty. I mean, the chains for the tailgate have these rubber protectors over them so they don't rattle and clink against the bed. And water had sat inside those rubber protectors for so long that it rusted the chain inside of the plastic tube. So, it's rusty. And then, like I said, the door didn't open, and just had a lot of things going on with it. So, I made him an offer. They counter offered, and then I sat on it for a day or two and decided that I would get it. And, this truck's not going anywhere. I don't plan on selling it. It's going to be part of the collection. So I paid $3,000 for it, which is, more than what I wanted to, considerably less than the $10,000. But I think it was a fair price for a truck with a title, and the potential that it had, which, just looking at them, you can kind of tell, like, if you're going to be able to revive them or not. When I'm looking at trucks, I try not to leave too many clues for the seller to adjust their price. Like, I've had guys say, "Oh yeah, this thing, I want 2,500 or whatever." And then you go out there and, you hook up some wires and you hit the key and it turns over, and they go, "I'm pretty firm at 2,500." And, then you lose your ability to deal on it, because, or not, you don't really lose it, but you definitely have showed that the rig might have more value than what the person thinks it does. So normally when I go on these exploratory trips, I don't take a battery. I don't do any of that stuff because I don't want them to jack the price up on me once they figure out that it is a runner or whatever. So, but while the guy's, talking to me about stuff, you kind of just casually, turn the crank pulley and, look down the throttle bore of the carburetor and look at the wires going to the starter. Are they melted and burned? And, you just kind of look at stuff to see, the guy that hauled it didn't know what he was doing, and he wrapped a chain around the front axle, and it crushed one of the hard lines for the front brakes. And so, I saw that. And so the guy's obviously not thoughtful or mechanical. So, I kind of knew I had a little bit of some wiggle room there. But anyway, I just knew that I could get it going again with not a ton of effort. And if you've seen the social media stuff, you know that that's true. I had it running on the trailer in, I winched it on the trailer at the guy's field because it was just easier and I didn't want to mess with it there. But when I got it back to the shop, unhooked the fuel line off the fuel pump and put it into a gas can, ran a jumper wire from the battery to the coil, and a jumper from the coil to a electric fuel pump that was already under the hood there. Connected everything, and she fired off. And it actually runs pretty decent. It's got a bad exhaust leak, and the muffler's ready to fall off. And, there's a bunch of that going on, but, it has a lot of potential. So the next step is to get the fuel tank sorted out so I can stop running it on a gas can. And then brakes, of course. And brakes are going to be tough. This is one of these, rare, heavy models that they don't make any of that stuff anymore. So I'm probably going to have to send the shoes out to be relined, and I'm going to try and rebuild the wheel cylinders myself. If I can't, if the bores are too shot or whatever, then I'll probably have to send it out to be sleeved. There's some companies that do these stainless sleevings on wheel cylinders. So I'll probably do that if I can't rebuild them myself. The front one are the ones I'm really afraid of, and I'll admit that. This front end is a very, very particular style. There's a lot of seals. There's a lot going on in there. The wheel bearings are very unique. There's just a lot of expensive and rare stuff in there. And, I want to be careful that I don't mess anything up that's unobtainium. But also I do want to get the brakes going on it because I would like to putter around with this truck this summer. It's a straight 6. So yeah, I'll back up a little bit. It's a 6-cylinder. I think it's a 264. I can't tell. The data plate, it's a BG motor. The color, it's blue-green. That's what BG stands for, blue-green. It's that color, but the data plate where they stamped it is really faint, and I'm having a hard time reading the numbers. I got to clean it a little bit better and then see what it is, but I believe it's a 264. I thought it was a 220 at first, but the 220 that I saw was part of the engine serial number or something like that. So I don't believe it's a 220 like I initially thought. But it's got a T98 4-speed, so the synchronized 4-speed. First gear is not synchronized, but the rest of them are, because it could have come with a T9, I think, which is a non-synchronized 4-speed. And then it has the Spicer transfer case, this big heavy unit. And it's funny because the transfer case, Excuse me, man. Anyway, the transfer case is set way back. It's like back behind the cab under the bed. So the rear drive shaft is this short little thing, and then the intermediate drive shaft that goes from the transmission to transfer case is that intermediate drive shaft is longer than the rear drive shaft. And then the front drive shaft is this long monster unit, which I think is really funny because on the some of the later, like the short bed trucks and stuff, the front and rear drive shafts are dang near the same length. So it's just kind of funny that they're like that. But anyway, I'm looking forward to really trying to clean this thing up. The poor thing has had a hard life. I believe it was a logging company truck. They have underneath the paint on the driver door is like a company name I can't quite read, and then it has a PUC number, which is a trucking company thing. But it's my guess is that it was a logging company that had to have their PUC on it because they used it to, haul stuff in and out of town. For as beat up as it is, I wouldn't be surprised if they used it to move rigging and help when they're setting up landings and hauling things around like that. Every single emblem on it was broken off and then reattached with like bolts, like lag bolts. So the guy that owned it, or whoever owned it, cared enough to put the emblems back on, which I thought was kind of, they liked it. But the grill's beat up, the bumper is tacoed, one of the headlight bezels is smashed. So my plan is to kind of go through and replace some of the broken stuff. Like we'll put a new bezel on it. I'm going to take the grill off and just hammer out some of the dents and put it back on. The front bumper, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do yet. I've got several PTO winches in my collection. Yeah, they're all only like 8,000 pound Ramses. But, I can run a PTO off of the T98, which would be fine. I think I can do it. I have to look at the shafting setup, but yeah. So I was thinking about putting a PTO winch on it, and then some kind of homemade bumper that's, I don't want to say period correct because it's really hard to duplicate some of that stuff. Obviously, it won't look modern, but it's probably just going to be some like 2x5 rectangle tube, kind of angle cut and out there, weld some hooks to it or something, and just to make it a little more functional and maybe, like I say, period correct. It did have a PTO at one point. There's a hole in the floor with a boot still there for the PTO lever. So, putting a PTO back in there isn't going to be sacrilege. It's just, a little different. But I would like to do that. But I'd like to get all the lights working because, like, right now, the wiring harness going to the bed, to the back, is a trailer, like, flat 4 harness. So it's a green wire, a yellow wire, a brown wire, and a white wire. And then they just splice that into the factory harness with a bunch of wire nuts. So what I'd like to do is kind of reharness it, at least the back half. Of course, they did away with the turn signal switch and put some aftermarket thing on the column. So I'd like to take the column apart and make it the original signal switch start working again. Just things like that. And half of these old trucks, and you guys know this if you've done this, you're undoing other people's BS. There's a bunch of toggle switches on the dash that need to go away. There's wire nuts and butt connectors and just wires twisted and taped. I'd like to get the heater working, get the wipers working. Like I said, I want to kind of just putter around with it in the summertime and kind of break it in. But I think it would be fun. It would be neat because, again, if you've hung around for any length of time, I like to recreate old time scenes. So, I take the old trucks. Usually every season I take one and get a load of firewood. We burn wood in our house, so we have to. But normally they're not they're not they're not role playing trips. Usually if we're going to cut firewood, we've got a plan. We're going to cut, we cut, and we come home and we stack it in the woodshed. But one trip I set aside to be kind of like the screw around trip. And so I think what I'd like to do is get the 140 out this fall and take it into the woods and, cut a load of wood and load it up. That's what it's set up for that. We could put 9-foot bed and put some racks on it. We could haul a cord and a half home, probably if I did it right. But I want to, do it justice and kind of put it back in its element and get some good pictures and some video and, kind of recreate that 60s logging era, that lifestyle. And, I didn't come into that until the 80s, but, there's a lot of old timers out there that know what that looks like. And, to hopefully do it justice, make those old guys proud, be nostalgic, and kind of show off what that truck was made for in the first place, I think would be fun. But like I said, it just needs a lot of elbow grease. Like every other podcast, I'm talking about how you don't have to spend a lot of money. You just got to, figure out what the heck's going on and clean it, shine it, lubricate it, and put it back together. And like I said, that's what I've already done with this thing. I just, in the time I've had it, got it running. I did put a new ignition switch in it because, of course, they didn't have a key for this one, and it was all butchered up. Anyway, so I took care of some wiring under the dash, put a $20 generic ignition switch from Napa in there, and the thing starts on a key now. So my next phase is to continue cleaning up the wiring and getting the lights working better. Getting the doors. The windows roll up and down, but they're chunky and rough. So we're going to pop the door panels off and lubricate the guides and lubricate the tracks and put it back together. It's just stuff like that. And I think I can really nurse this truck back to life. I'm lucky in this respect that I have a lot of parts here. So me changing that broken headlight bezel doesn't cost me anything other than what however I ended up with the new bezel in the first place. But it's still cheaper than, one of you guys buying it and paying for shipping and all of that. So I understand that I'm lucky that I do have a collection of parts I can pull from to make this truck better. But again, I'm not buying a bunch of new stuff. It's not getting an engine rebuild. It's not getting, new, I don't know. It's just, we're cleaning up what we can. And I am going to have to buy some new stuff, but, any truck you build, you're going to have to figure out new brakes. Like that's not something you want to skimp on or just shine up and put back. Am I having the drums turned? Absolutely not. Am I buying new spring kits? Only if I have to. And like even the wheel cylinders, like I said, I'm just going to try and hone them and put it back together because those kits are like $12. The reline, that's going to be more expensive, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still cheaper than than a lot of other things. And it's safety. So yeah, don't skimp there. But am I going to run out and buy new, cab lights or new red tail lights? No, it's going to live with the tail lights that it has. Am I going to take that trailer wiring out? Probably, because they cut it in such a way that it's difficult to repair. So I'll probably restring the wires to the back. I actually have now everyone's going to roll their eyes. I have some 6-strand trailer wiring. It's in a round black case, and it's pretty good stuff. I'm probably going to use that to wire the back. But I'm going to put it under the, run it into the cab and put a plug on it like it's supposed to have. And then those strands will have more than just turn and stop. It will also have backup light and some accessory lighting to go back there. I'll probably put a trailer plug back there, just a little 4-pin for like a utility trailer, because I definitely am not going to be pulling any kind of trailers with it. I know we're talking about pulling the girls' float in the parades with it, which I think would be quite the attention getter. But really, like I said, it's 95% of this project is going to be clean up, elbow grease, shine them. We've got another seat we can put in there because it's got some like S10 pickup seat. So we'll take that out and put the original type seat in there, and just really, like I said, we'll just go through it, clean it up, make it better. No, it's not getting painted. No, it's probably not getting any rust repair for a long time. I'm probably just going to screw some license plates to the floor to cover up whatever holes there are. And, we'll get some grommets and some stuff to plug up the firewall holes. But I'd like the heater to get the heater working good for this winter, because I do have some plans. Like I said, I want to take it up and cut firewood and, do it some justice, give it some nostalgia again. There's the big Snowcat get together in Joseph in December. I know that's 8 months away from now. It'd be neat to drive it there, which would be slow, I know. And then, hang out at the Snowcat get together, and drive it back and just have a trip, have an adventure with it. I think it would be fun. And, that's what these trucks are for, is adventuring. But also, like I said, this one needed to be saved. It was too special, too unique. I know the crowd around here, and it probably wouldn't have gotten the attention that it would have needed. It would have been probably flipped, and I'm not that kind of guy, and I didn't want to see it get that kind of fate. So, but anyway. Yeah, so that's it. That's the B-160. B-140. Sorry, I was thinking about something else. That's the B-140. Keep watching the social medias. Just keep checking in, and you're going to see more updates and more bits and pieces about it and things that it's getting done, and more adventures. And, I will probably be putting some miles on it here pretty soon. So, stay tuned for all that. Instagram, Facebook, all of it. So yeah, I appreciate everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, I'm Dan from Binder Boneyard.